Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Clinical Supply Management with Siebel Clinical. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Param Singh, and I'm the Vice President of the Clinical Trial Management Solution Practice at BioPharm Systems. I've been working in the industry for the past 14 years or so. I've almost exclusively been working with Siebel Clinical during that time. Before joining BioPharm a little over 5 years ago, I was part of Accenture's pharma R&D practice and leading Siebel CTMS implementations there as well. Overall now, I've been part of more than 30-plus implementations and projects and integrations with Siebel Clinical. And these all vary from large pharma, CROs, medical device companies, academic institutions, and range from small implementations of 30 users or so to global implementations of over 4,000 users. We're also going to be looking at one of our BioPharm proprietary solution called Ascend. It's an official Oracle Accelerate solution for Siebel Clinical, and we'll be looking at some of that functionality today during our webinar. So now that I've introduced myself, I'd just like to take a minute to talk about my team here at BioPharm and explain a little bit more about what we do before we get into the key topic for today's webinar. We provide a variety of services and products related to clinical trial management. We manage implementations of Siebel Clinical, whether those are custom implementations or implementations of our Siebel Clinical Accelerator, Ascend. Also, if you've seen some of our previous webinars, you know that we do extensive work with integrations in Siebel Clinical and related systems. Our approach to system implementations is very process-focused, and we also provide our process consulting services to help organizations define and harmonize their SOPs and business processes across their organization with respect to clinical trial management. And we also offer comprehensive training services and products related to Siebel Clinical and Ascend, including the iHelp content package as well. So this is just a glimpse of some of the services and products that we offer in this space. And for more information, please feel free to contact me directly. So here's a look at today's agenda. We've already covered off the welcomes and introductions, so we'll move on to looking at some emerging trends with respect to clinical trial management. We'll discuss some key challenges that organizations are facing. We'll then look at the flow of the clinical supply chain process so we can understand the full scope of what needs to be addressed potentially by a system. We'll then look at some basic types of data to be tracked, what metrics and dates and other attributes are important to track our progress and efficiencies in this area. I'll then go over the reasons why we believe Siebel Clinical is one of the best places to do some of this tracking. And then most of the time today should be spent in discussing all the various approaches that we've identified in Siebel Clinical and also be able to demonstrate each of these approaches live in the system so you'll be able to evaluate which approach may best fit your company. We'll conclude with a summary and leave some time for question and answer. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please submit it in the chat feature, and we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. Okay, so first we're going to start by looking at some trends in clinical supply management in our industry. First on the list of trends is partnering. Pharmaceutical companies are increasingly partnering with service providers to manage their supply chain. Choosing the right supply chain contractor is critical. Need to be able to for trial changes, an integrated network, and obviously an affordable price. Next is complexity. The supply chain organizational structure is becoming increasingly complex. more trials, more regulations, more regions, more resources. Next, we have an increase in cold chain distribution. This increases likelihood of the products that are being distributed being damaged during shipping. The shipper must maintain correct temperature throughout the distribution. Companies must qualify the drug packaging, shipping container, and supply chain pipeline. We also need to track all of these storage handling attributes as well. Then we see that accurate supply forecasting becoming even more important. Due to the increasing cost of clinical supplies, organizations can no longer rely on heavily on overages, and accurate forecasting is becoming increasingly more important. So with the trends, there come some challenges. So we'll look at some challenges facing our industry in the area of clinical supply management. So starting with the forecasting topic, we see that many companies still forecast manually with Excel spreadsheets and manual mathematical modeling. And some studies indicate that organizations are doing this up to 70% of organizations are actually doing this on Excel spreadsheets. So you can imagine the challenges with obtaining accurate forecasting. Next are regulatory issues. Arrival of a shipping without all the required documentation can result in weeks-long delays at ports or depots, which can compromise trial timelines and cause spoilage of supplies. Also, often depots are established in areas with lengthy custom clearance and import license application process, complex import requirements, which cause numerous delays. So having a region-specific process and anticipating those can pose a significant challenge. And also significant challenges are there when we look at how we are performing in the area of clinical supply management, as there is a lack of performance metrics. So as noted with forecasting, many companies are still using Excel spreadsheets and other manual methods, which reduces the number of metrics that are readily available. So we can't gauge our progress, our efficiencies and inefficiencies in real time easily. Also, since partnering is an emerging trend, there are additional challenges in service provider selection and management as well. Sponsors must manage multiple vendors and develop SOPs, as well as keep metrics if they aren't automatically calculated. And picking the right service provider can be difficult, given the large number of contractors, regions, and the complexity of the supply chain. And due to the partnering and other factors, the number of players in the supply chain has increased as well. And that creates new challenges with communication. Many respondents to the studies conducted note that communication between supply chain management and the clinical team was exceptionally weak, but also between sponsors and providers as well. The Siebel Clinical can be leveraged to address many of these challenges using functionalities such as region-specific document packages, standardized vendor evaluation forms, and we're going to touch on many of these functions, but I want to just clarify that the demonstration portion of today's webinar will be focused on different approaches to using Siebel Clinical to track the actual distribution of the supplies to the sites, but obviously there are other functions and features of Siebel Clinical that can help with sort of some of the areas around it, like, for example, region-specific rules and document packages and activities tracked from a region perspective. So if you would like additional demonstrations on those specific functions, again, feel free to contact us after the webinar. So let's look at the typical clinical supply management process. So we start at the manufacturer, which produces the product, stores the product, and ultimately manages the distribution to either the depots or intermediate distributors or directly to the sites themselves. Next, we have the depots or the intermediate distributors, which they store the product until it's ready to be shipped to the site. Typically, a sponsor that uses depots typically has these distribution centers in a variety of different regions to manage the distribution to sites in that particular area. Sites will then receive the shipment, record the quantities received, used, damaged, destroyed, expired, or returned, etc. They in turn potentially send that product back to the sponsor, which is either not used or damaged or expired, and they send that back to the sponsor for destruction. So we need a system that is capable of enabling and supporting this process and tracking all the way through it. So when we look at and design that process in detail, we need to ensure that we can track various key points of data about that supply. We need to obviously track quantities and metrics such as number of units shipped, number of units used, destroyed, returned, and then look at comparisons on percent used versus destroyed and potentially some other metrics as well. We also need to track what type of shipments we're making. It may not just be investigational product that we want to track. We could have the need to track ancillary supplies or equipment or comparative product as well. We also need to track specific dates for each shipment, such as the date that particular supplies were requested, the expiration date of drugs, site receipt date, return date, and we may also need to track some metrics related to those dates, such as number of dates that were either late or early based on the requested and sent dates, and also shipment turnaround. How quickly are we managing requests and fulfilling requests for supplies that are requested? We also have the need to track descriptor information about the supplies, such as shipment numbers, serial numbers for equipment that's sent, part numbers, or lot numbers or batch numbers as well. There might also be a need to track specific storage and handling information with each shipment as well. So we talked about cold chain supply, so ensuring that throughout the whole process from manufacturer to depot to site that we actually have that storage handling information attached to the supply so that they know how to store the supply that they're receiving. So there's a significant amount of attributes and information that we're looking to track in the system. So why do we think that you can do all of this in Siebel Clinical, and why does it make sense to use Siebel CTMS to track this information? Well, Siebel Clinical streamlines the CTMS process. We already track key activities such as initiation, monitoring, closeout, and all other site management tasks. So inventory supply is another aspect of tracking that makes sense to track from a trial perspective. We can increase the inventory availability at the site level for the site team right in the CTMS, so they can actually see the visibility into what's available at the site. The team can also identify areas of improvement with regards to our own process to supply shipments or problematic sites with respect to handling or storage and use of IP. So when we're looking at how quickly we're fulfilling requests, we can track our own progress within that particular process, and also on the site level, if we're having significant spoilage of product or damage of product due to poor handling, we can actually identify that from the system directly. You can start to manage not only your sites with respect to shipments, but also your shipping and storing vendors as well. So you can manage your communication and track performance and perform assessments directly in the CTMS to identify low-performing vendors and service providers if you're using a variety of storage facilities or shipping vendors that are actually doing some of the supply chain activity for you. So once you start to track this information, you can use reporting and analysis from past data on similar studies to forecast supply levels on current and planned studies, and therefore save on costs by preventing overages of inventory at the site. You can use CTMS to manage regional document requirements and enable that process in the system that anticipate key tasks needed with regard to supply shipments in a particular region. You can use CTMS to manage communications by utilizing modules that track correspondence and enable mail merge capability for mass communications to groups of vendors or sites as it relates to your supply. The use of a central tool in a repository such as Siebel Clinical also eliminates the need for externally manually maintained spreadsheets and allow an organization to adhere to a standard process. So the data that's tracked in a standard manner can be integrated also to other systems and enable even more automation and efficiency. So this automation and integration can also help to prevent human error in tracking and maintaining this data in multiple systems or spreadsheets. So next, we're going to look at a few different options available in Siebel Clinical in being able to track this information regarding clinical supplies. And again, we're going to look at some demos in the system as well with each of these options. So the first one is the Siebel Clinical out of the box. So we'll look at some features that are available out of the box with Siebel Clinical. Next, we'll look at a potential option doing very minimal configuration of Siebel Clinical to track some additional attributes. Then we'll look at tracking with some medium-level enhancements or configurations to enable some supply tracking. And last, we'll look at a really sort of a blown-out solution, fully robust configuration that enables that entire process that we looked at earlier. So the first, we can look at Siebel Clinical Vanilla and see what our options are. So from a setup perspective, we can use the existing site activities and documents views and track various records for supplies here, and just use vanilla fields to add descriptions and comments related to each activity or document. You can also add supply-specific activity type values to differentiate from other general activities or documents. So how it works, basically going into your site activities, creating a new site activity record, again, through changing some of the LOVs or list of values for activity type. We can add an inventory activity type and select that, and then we just basically use the existing fields to add quantity and lot number in description or comments fields that are available. So the pros to this, obviously, there's no real additional cost. So if you already have Siebel Clinical implemented or close to vanilla, these views are out of the box. So there's no additional cost. It's pretty quick to implement. You basically just have to define the process of how you're going to track it. But some of the drawbacks to this is the inventory and supply records are tracked with other site activities. So it could be confusing. It's going to be lumped in with other milestones, tasks, to-dos, alerts, things like that, and it'll be in the same view. So you'll have to do some filtering on that activity type to actually get to the information that you're looking for. And also the other information, like lot number and serial numbers, shipping numbers, and quantity, all of that is tracked in some free text fields, possibly the generic description field, and so that makes querying and reporting quite difficult. The next, we'll look at Siebel Clinical Vanilla again, but what we're going to do is just add some basic configurations to make it a bit more specific to the data that we're tracking. So we can still use the existing activities and documents used for sites and track various records for supplies here. You'll want to still add the supply-specific activity type list value to differentiate from other general activities and documents. But in addition, we can add some supply-specific fields such as lot number and quantity and site receipt date, for example. And so those are some specific attributes that we can add to that view, specific for tracking supply inventory records. So it works pretty much the same way. You're still going to go to site activities and select the activity type of inventory, but when you're entering the information, they're actually going in their specific fields. So you're not just using comments or descriptions to add a variety of information about that record. So again, the pros to this, the benefits of this is it is relatively inexpensive. So those of you that are familiar with Siebel development, adding a few extra attributes on an existing view or screen, can be done fairly straightforward. It's quick to implement, and now we have it's slightly easier to query for and report on inventory-specific data. So now that we have those additional fields, we can query for the inventory records, and then be able to either export that or run a report and look at the quantity and lot numbers and things like that in their appropriate place. But again, the drawback of this is it's still going to be tracked with all the non-inventory site activities, so it could still be confusing. So you have these fields that are only relevant for inventory records that may not be relevant for other activities. So you have a combined view, a list where some fields are blank for a variety of records. So to demonstrate that, I don't necessarily have a vanilla instance of Siebel Clinical, but I can demonstrate both of those using our one of our demo environments. So I'm going to share my desktop here. Okay, so here we are in Siebel Clinical, and we're going to go into our site management, and I'll just go into one of our sites, and we're going to go into our activities view. Now, this is a slightly configured view, but the fields that we're going to be looking at are available in vanilla as well. So for both the first and the second option, it follows a similar path in that you're going to create a new activity record, and you're going to select inventory instead of any of the other activity types. So this is basically categorizing this record as an inventory supply record. And so for the first option, again, using vanilla attributes, you would be able to put in a lot number and put in quantity. So you can essentially put in a number of attributes directly in the description. So you can imagine that if we have things like shipment number and other attributes, you would basically just put it all in the description field, and then you can still use some of the dates that are available for when you've sent that out or when that was received at the site. So you can use start and end dates in that fashion. But obviously, there's significant challenges in sort of trying to find where any of this information is. If you're trying to query the application, you could do it with some wildcard characters, but it does become a little bit difficult. And so the second option is very similar. The only difference is instead of putting it in the description field, you'll actually have some actual attributes at this level to be able to enter in lot numbers. And again, I don't have this enabled in our system, but you would have a lot number field, a quantity field, a series of fields here that you would enter in those specific values. But what you're left with is what you're left with is still these records that live among all the other records, all the other activities and milestones and to-dos and appointments. So you're forced to query every time and look for inventory-specific records, and then get to this point from a site perspective, and then being able to run some reports off of this. So it is again, there are options from a vanilla perspective to be able to use the existing functionality to be able to track some of this information, but it does become a little bit cumbersome and a little bit cluttered. So I'm going to go back to our presentation. Okay. So next, we'll look at some option for medium enhancements. So what this does is we're gonna create a brand new view under site management to track and manage supplies. We're going to add customized fields to track the inventory-specific data, keep it all separate, and that way we have the ability to also aggregate and roll that information up as well separately. So how this works, so you're going to navigate to a supply management view under site management, under the site. You're going to create a new record, and you're going to enter all the information. Now, the beauty of this is every field is going to be relevant for this record. So, since we've created a brand new view, a brand new section, a brand new list for supply management, all of the values or all the attributes are going to be specific to your process, and they're all going to be relevant for that record. So obviously the pros, it's easier to track, it's easier to query and report on inventory records when they're all housed in a separate view. It works well for investigational product and ancillary supplies as well. So if you want to track anything in terms of equipments or binders or actual drug that's sent to the site, you can actually track all of that. The cons are that essentially this is only tracking inventory level at the site, so it doesn't track everything for your supply chain process. It's just going to track that we have X number of units that we've shipped out to the site, but we don't know where those units came from potentially, or the inventory levels at the manufacturer or actually at the depots that supply that site. So let's look at a demonstration of that. So we're back in site management. So we're back in our system. We're at the site. So we're going to go back to our site. And instead of going to our activities view, we're going to go to this view called supplies. Now this is something that we've configured in our Accelerator Ascend solution. So this is out of the box for Ascend. So you can see both of these examples. We have and you can track different types of supplies that you want to be able to send to the site. So we have investigational product, ancillary supplies, equipment, placebo, comparative products, anything that you want to be able to categorize. So here we have investigational product. You can have a description, shipping company, shipment numbers, lot numbers. If it's equipment that we're sending, we can have equipment serial numbers as well. So if you expect that equipment back at the end of the study, you'll be able to track the serial numbers and make sure that those are returned. We have shipment dates. We have units that are shipped, units that are returned or destroyed, expiration dates, site receipt dates, dates that they're returned. We can even track who we're shipping to at the site, any comments. So you can essentially see that having this separate view will enable you to have a very focused, very specific, deliberate process for tracking this information for supplies. And the great thing about it is, you're tracking it at the site level, but obviously, since the hierarchy is allows us to roll up and aggregate this information. When you go to the highest level of protocol, I can also see supply information for all of my sites underneath that particular protocol. So, when you're doing reconciliation of product or supplies at the end of, site closeout, closeout at the country level or study closeout, you can actually do and make sure that all that reconciliation has happened. So everything that wasn't used is either returned or destroyed. So this is a nice feature with this level of configuration in the system. So the last one is, sort of our full process. So the setup here is we're going to create a series of new screens and views to track not only site-level supplies, but also track, manufacturers' distribution of supply to the depots. If I wanted to look at a depot or intermediate sort of storage facility, I can see by lot, by product, how many units we have available on hand to be able to send out to the site. So I can see my inventory levels at all levels within the supply chain. And also I can make transactions between those inventory locations. So whether it's a depot to the site or a manufacturer to the depot or one depot to another depot, I can actually make those inventory transactions, and again, it will calculate what my inventory levels are at each of those locations. So how does it work? So there's a lot more involved here, but essentially we're gonna create our product. We're going to create our product and lot information. We're going to create our manufacturer as an account in the application as an inventory location, as well as all of our depots. And then we're going to record inbound or outbound transactions for when we're sending supplies from the manufacturer to the depots or from one depot to another depot. So you can actually track all of those transactions. And then once you have product at a particular depot, the site can actually make a request, or site will make a request for a certain number of units of product to their depot, and then to fulfill that request, we actually have all of that tracking. So again, once those supplies are sent to the site, they automatically reduce their number of units on hand at the depots. So the pros, it's robust inventory tracking at all levels. At the depot and the site level, we have increased inventory level visibility at depots and the sites. We have optimal querying and reporting capabilities, since we have all those individual attributes in their own views and screens, and we have complete traceability. We can see where that product originated from, where it's gone, before it ultimately gets to the site. The cons to this approach, or drawbacks, is obviously there's more effort involved to implement. So, we're looking at a series of new screens and views to be able to track all this information at all levels. And then the second thing is not really ideal for tracking ancillary supplies. So you would still have to do and track equipment and ancillary supplies separately from this, because you're not really interested in tracking, obviously, inventory levels for those pieces. So let's look at this in the system. Okay, so we have a lot of this enabled in one of our environments. This is actually an add-on module for our Siebel Clinical Ascend solution that can be put against any Siebel Clinical implementation. So we'll walk through this, from initial setup to actually all the way down to the site level. So at the beginning, At the top, we're going to look at products. So here we have a list of products, and I'm just going to look at this BioPharm Product 101. We have some key attributes of storage and handling requirements, what the product type is, dosage form, route of administration. So all of this is sort of tracked at that individual product level. Once I click on that, I can track our product lots. So as we create new lots, I can track new lots and define things like expiration date, manufacturer date, and then the unit and kit descriptions, and any sort of comments per lot that we generate internally. So this is our product and lot tracking. And then we have a new view under clinical administration called inventory locations. So inventory locations are any locations other than the site which will potentially store and distribute investigational products. So we have our manufacturer. So the location type is manufacturer. So this is our BioPharm main manufacturing plant. And then we have two depots. We have two drug depots in various areas that are going to potentially receive products and manufacturing. When we look at individual locations, when you look at a manufacturer, the only difference between a manufacturer and location type and a drug depot location type is we're not really interested in overall levels of product or inventory at the manufacturer because we're actually manufacturing it there. So we don't necessarily care units available. So when we have both of our product lots available to be sent from this manufacturer, we can actually transfer these out to a particular location. So here, if I select a destination location, it'll show me any inventory location that's able to receive this particular product. So when I make that, so here I've transferred 150 units to this particular drug depot, and the units available has just gone down by 150 for this particular product and lot. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to create a new transfer out of lot A. And again, the only thing that shows up are the other locations that are able to accept that product or lot. So here I'm going to go to Demo Depot 1, and I'm going to put in number of units is 200. So we've transferred 200 to Demo Depot 1. As soon as I recipient that. So as soon as I put that in here, you'll notice that the units available has gone down, the units transferred has gone up. So we have a full tracking of what's been transferred and where from this manufacturer to the individual depots. Now, when I go, there are also received from sections as well that are populated automatically. So when we go back to our inventory location, if I go to my drug depot 1, I'll notice that for lot A, I've actually received 200 units. So I have 200 units on hand, and these are the 200 units that I just got transferred, and I can see my source location of where I received these 200 units. So again, it's full tracking on both levels, so from a transfer as well as from a receipt. If I try to do things like transfer, I don't actually have any units on hand, but if I try to transfer any units from this level to another drug depot, it'll actually stop me from doing that. So it looks at number of units that are available that are on hand to be able to transfer any to another depot. So if I do it from this level, and again, if we had some that were received and we actually destroyed some, so let's say we destroyed 20 of them, So the number of units available just went down to 180. So if I try to, again, make a transfer to another location, and now that we only have 180 on hand, it shouldn't allow me to send 200. So it's telling me that there's only 180 units on hand. So you can lower that amount. So let's just send 80 so we have some units on hand. So just the manufacturer to the depots, from depots to each other, you can make all of those transactions, but the system will not let you transfer more product than you have on hand, of course, at that site or at that depot. The only time it lets you do that is when you're a manufacturer, as we saw before. So a manufacturer, it doesn't look at what you have on hand. It sort of overrides that because you're at the manufacturer. So you don't have to look at that information. So next we'll go to our sites. So we're going to go to one of our sites. And we've already established that their IP distributor is demo account 2, which is Drug Depot 1. And then we have a new view called Product Inventory Shipments. So one of the things that we've put in here is if we try to send a shipment to a site that hasn't been activated, we actually create an error. So there's some process and regulatory process that's in here that doesn't allow you to send drug to the site unless they're active. So let's make this guy active. And now we should be able to send product. Not sure why this is not. Okay, so I'm going to go to another site. So this is a different site, so we'll actually see some different information here. But we have this site. We've already sent some information or sent some supplies, investigational product to this particular site. And again, their distributor is this insulin freezer depot. And then units requested, we're actually putting in units requested, and then ultimately we're putting in the units that are received. So just to illustrate this, I'll go through it. And when you select the product, you actually see the product that is set up for that particular protocol and that particular site. So I'm going to pick that product. So you'll notice that all the product information comes down, the lot number, expiration dates, the unit kit description, all of that comes down. So let's say I'm requesting 2,000 additional units. So let's make it 3,000 because I think the depot, and we can put in requested date. So as of today, we need it by next week. So that's all you set up at the site level. And then once the depot actually sends this information, sorry, I need to put in the address. So once the depot fulfills this particular request, you'll actually put in things like shipment number, method of shipment, all the information about that shipment, and then at the site level, we'll put in the number of units received. So if I try to put in 3,000, I don't think we have 3,000 on hand. So it's telling me here as well that there's only 2,977 units on hand at that particular depot. So that's not accurate. We wouldn't have received 3,000 units because we didn't have that many on hand. So let's change that and say we received 2,900 units. So now we can actually track the rest of this. So even at this level, you're able to see things like you're able to track, units used, units available, destroyed. So if I put in here that we've used already out of this slot or this shipment, we've used 900, the units available automatically goes down. If we've damaged and destroyed 100 in the shipping, it also goes down. So you're tracking against this number of units available. So once this reaches down to a particular threshold, from a site team, you need to make another request. So if number of units on hand start to go down and you don't have a number of units available that are enough for the subjects that you're anticipating, you need to make a new request of your depot for another shipment. So the request process and as well as the fulfillment process is all in the same view. You can design it as such where different users have access to different fields and attributes to be able to track the request and the fulfillment separately. And one thing that you'll see at the highest level, when we're going back to our inventory locations, and this time I'm actually going to look at that insulin freezer location, which is set up as a drug depot. There we go, the insulin freezer. And so what you can see here is not only the individual lots that are set up and if they've made any transfers. This depot hasn't made any transfers to any other depot, but you can see again where they've sent, where they received their units from the manufacturer, and also the key shipments to the site. So you can see all the sites that they're supplying, and you can see that information that we just saw at the site level. So this is sort of full reconciliation, full accounting of what sites this inventory location is supplying, and then what information we have at the site level. So you can set up automatic notifications as well to flag, again, when a site has reached a certain threshold of product, to say that we've gone from 2,000 units and now we're down to the last 100 units. So we need to send a notification to that responsible individual on the study team so that they can make another request. So you can drive a lot of, now that we have all these data points, we can drive a lot of notifications off of a variety of different triggers on these inventory on this inventory supply management module. Okay. So in summary, we've seen that there's an increasing need for tighter management and greater visibility into the clinical supply chain. To manage this need, we've seen that Siebel Clinical offers robust functionality to support that need, both out of the box and with enhancements. And there's a decent amount of flexibility with using Siebel Clinical, as it offers multiple ways to address that need, both from out-of-the-box activity views with fields, brand new supplies views, or a full-on clinical supplies and inventory tracking module that tracks everything on all levels. So a key thing to note is that each of the approaches that we mentioned are scalable. So if you want to start with option 2 and then move on to building and using option 3, then ultimately to option 4, you can certainly do so with Siebel Clinical, as it is a system that will grow and scale as your organization grows and your needs evolve. So how can BioPharm help with your needs around this and other areas? Well, we can provide services such as demonstrating in detail what you've seen here today and doing some deeper dives in the specifics of each approach. We can hold deep dive workshops and full-on analysis projects to analyze your company's process and determine which approach would best fit your company's needs. And then once we determine the right path for your organization, we can certainly provide the development and implementation services to fulfill your requirements in the system. With regards to products that are available from BioPharm that we have to offer in this area, the robust module that you saw today, is an add-on module package that we can deploy to your Siebel Clinical system or on our own BioPharm Ascend Siebel Clinical Accelerator solution. So both option 3 and option 4 are things that are available with the Ascend solution. So we can also offer your organization access to our sandbox environment so your company can actually evaluate and assess the functionality and capabilities of our enhancement to your company's process and requirements. So with that, I'll open the line up for questions. And again, if you do have questions, please submit them in the chat feature, and we'll try to answer as many as we can in the time that we have available. Eugene?
Great, thank you, Param. All right, so we have about 5 minutes or so left, so I'll go ahead and get started on the questions. It appears that some of them may have been answered during the presentation, but we'll go ahead and ask them anyway just in case you missed it or they haven't been asked. So do CROs use similar supply trackers, and if so, can the sponsor and CRO supply trackers be integrated?
That's a great question. So I think what we've seen is CROs do use supply trackers. Or they've not been since they are CROs and they're not really managing the whole sort of manufacturing and supply chain process and actually relying on the sponsor. What they use are more tracking tools that will actually integrate to a variety of sponsors, so bring that information in. So with the few options that we saw today, option 3, certainly we've seen that integrated with CROs integrate that with their sponsors. It'll be a little bit more effort and complexity when we're talking about tracking the full supply chain, but it's certainly able to integrate with any system. So if a sponsor has an inventory supply system that's separate from CTMS, we can certainly integrate to it with the CRO CTMS system.
Great, thank you. I'm going to jump down the list. I work in the medical device industry. Are you able to track by serial number?
Yes. So we've enabled serial number tracking on individual shipments. So when you saw the option for tracking clinical supplies and ancillary supplies and equipment and things like that, we have attributes such as serial number. But from a medical device perspective, you would need to track one record per device, right? To be able to do that. The other option would be if we're tracking, say, 100 units of a particular device that's being sent out. We can configure sort of a multi-value where you can track multiple serial numbers to one shipment. So if it's the same device that you're sending, but you're sending 100 of them, 100 units of them, but you want to track individual serial numbers, we can actually reconfigure that serial number field to be a multi-value field, so you can actually track all the different serial numbers for the devices that you're sending. So it'll require a little bit more configuration, but it's very minimal to be able to meet that need.
Great. I'll ask one more question due to time. Can Siebel Clinical send email notifications to sites, depots, and sponsors at specific points during a study?
Yes, absolutely. So we've done this before where there's a variety of triggers that organizations want to be able to send automatic notifications to sites. So one of them is, let's say, when the site becomes active. So as soon as you activate a site, you want some sort of notification to go to somebody that's responsible for setting up shipments to the site. So that active flag or the active status basically says that we've initiated the site, they're ready to go. We can actually send product to them. So that's one of the triggers. The other trigger is something that I mentioned, where if you set up a threshold where if the supply drops down to a certain level, that you want some sort of alert going to the study team to be able to request additional product. You can also even automate that process if you choose to say that instead of going to the study team, you can actually send that notification directly to the depot. So it's automatic refill of supply if you've enabled it. So there's definitely a variety of things that we can do in terms of automatic notifications. The only thing that we need to essentially define is the trigger for that notification and who that notification goes to and the content of the notification. So certainly Siebel Clinical offers a variety of tools to be able to do those. And so everything that you saw today, if we have those attributes and we can use those as trigger points, we can certainly send email notifications and alerts to anyone internal or external to your organization.
Great, thank you. So it looks like we've used up all the allotted time we've had for this webinar, so that'll end our Q&A session. If you have other questions, feel free to contact us via phone or email. You can see the Contact Us slide in front of you. Once again, note that today's webinar will be available on biopharm.com within 24 hours for you to review and share with your colleagues. We thank you for your participation and hope that the information we provided you today was helpful. Have a great rest of the day and evening.